Comfort is a silent thief. It disguises itself as peace, safety, and stability, but beneath that calm surface, it quietly robs you of your potential. Most people live their lives seeking comfort, chasing it like it's the ultimate prize, not realizing that it's the very thing holding them back. When life feels easy, when there's no resistance, no challenge, no pressure, that's when growth stops. You see, human beings were not designed to remain static. Every part of your being, your body, your mind, your spirit was created to expand, to evolve, to become more. But comfort traps you in a repetitive loop of mediocrity where every day looks the same and progress becomes a distant dream. Comfort whispers lies to you. It tells you you've done enough when you haven't even scratched the surface of your potential. It convinces you that staying where you are is safe, but in truth, it's dangerous because it dulls your hunger. It weakens your fire. It teaches you to settle for what's convenient instead of reaching for what's possible. The longer you stay in comfort, the harder it becomes to break free from it. It starts small. Maybe it's sleeping in instead of getting up early to work on your goals. Maybe it's avoiding that tough conversation that could change your life. Maybe it's staying in a job you hate because it's familiar, even though your soul is screaming for something more. Little by little, comfort builds walls around you until you can no longer see what's outside of them. The greatest tragedy is not failure, it's stagnation. People think they're living when they're merely existing. They go through life on autopilot, repeating routines that make them feel safe but not alive. Comfort provides short-term relief but long-term decay. The muscles you don't use weaken, and the potential you don't express fades. Think about it. Every breakthrough you've ever had came after a period of discomfort. Every skill you've ever mastered started with confusion, struggle, and frustration. You had to push through awkward beginnings, face uncertainty, and endure moments when quitting felt easier. But those moments shaped you. They built resilience, confidence, and inner strength. Comfort would have denied you that growth. The mind loves familiarity. It craves predictability because it equates it with survival. The problem is, growth doesn't happen in predictable places. Growth happens in the unknown, in the uncomfortable, in the uncertain. When you're comfortable, you stop asking questions, you stop challenging yourself, you stop exploring new possibilities. The mind becomes lazy. You start accepting things as they are instead of envisioning what they could be. Comfort dulls your imagination. It makes you believe that where you are is the best you can do. But deep down, a part of you knows that's not true. You feel the restlessness, that inner pull that says, there's more. That's your potential calling you to step out of comfort and into purpose. Comfort breeds complacency, and complacency breeds regret. The people who achieve greatness in life are not necessarily the most talented or the most intelligent. They're the ones who refuse to settle. They're the ones who understand that comfort and growth cannot coexist. When life feels too easy, they intentionally make it harder. They set new challenges, raise their standards, and keep stretching beyond what's familiar. They understand that the moment you stop growing, you start dying. Growth demands friction. It demands resistance. Just like a diamond is formed under pressure, your greatness is revealed through struggle. Look at nature. Everything in nature grows through challenge. The seed must push through the soil to reach the light. The bird must break through the shell to fly. The tree must endure storms to grow strong roots. Nothing in nature thrives in comfort, yet humans are the only species that seek to avoid struggle. We build lives centered around convenience, instant gratification, and safety, then wonder why we feel empty, unfulfilled, and restless. You cannot be both comfortable and growing. The very thing that feels uncomfortable is usually the path to your next level. Comfort also attracts mediocrity. When you surround yourself with people who are comfortable being average, you start adapting to their level. Their conversations are safe, their goals are small, and their energy is stagnant. They don't challenge you because they don't challenge themselves. They'll tell you to slow down, to take it easy, to be realistic. But realism is often just another name for fear. If you're not careful, you'll start absorbing their mindset, lowering your standards to fit in, until one day you wake up and realize you become one of them, comfortable, predictable, and stuck. Comfort numbs your drive. It convinces you to tolerate situations that no longer serve you. You stop dreaming big because dreaming requires courage. You stop taking risks because risk invites uncertainty. But what's the alternative? To spend your life playing small? To live without ever discovering who you could have been? Every time you choose comfort over growth, you choose a smaller version of yourself. the version that never discovers its power, never realizes its capacity, never experiences the full expression of life. Comfort is not your friend. It's a slow poison, sweet in the beginning, deadly in the end. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It does it quietly, gently, over time, until you no longer have the will to change. Growth demands discomfort. It's not optional, it's not negotiable, and it's not something you can bypass with shortcuts or clever tricks. Every time you stretch beyond what you know, every time you take a step into the unknown, discomfort shows up to test how much you really want what you say you want. It's the price of transformation, the currency of progress. You can't evolve without pain, because pain is the signal that something is changing. Just like a muscle that tears before it grows stronger, your character, your mindset, your discipline, they all expand through resistance. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your greatest ally, the proof that you are moving in the right direction. When you feel discomfort, it means you've left the territory of what's familiar. It means you're entering a new dimension of yourself, one you've never experienced before. That's where growth happens, but most people run from that feeling. They interpret discomfort as danger, not realizing it's actually development. They retreat the moment things get hard, never discovering the strength that was waiting on the other side of persistence. The truth is, life rewards those who are willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of something greater. Every extraordinary achievement, every breakthrough, every dream realized was born in the soil of discomfort. Think about any area of your life where you've improved your health, your relationships, your career, your mindset. It all required doing things that didn't feel natural or easy at first. You had to break patterns, challenge habits, confront fear, and face uncertainty. The early mornings, the late nights, the rejections, the failures, those were not signs that you were doing something wrong. They were signs that you were growing. The discomfort you feel in those moments is the tension between who you are and who you are becoming. That tension is necessary because it stretches you toward your potential. Discomfort is a teacher. It exposes your weaknesses, your excuses, your limits. It shows you where you need to develop discipline, where you lack focus, and where your mindset still needs to be refined. It forces you to confront your own resistance. When you're uncomfortable, you see your true self without the mask, without the pretense. You can't hide behind convenience or routine. You're faced with the raw reality of how bad you really want to grow. That's why discomfort is so powerful, it reveals your level of commitment. Everyone says they want to grow until growth starts to hurt. The pain separates the talkers from the doers, the dreamers from the achievers. Discomfort also builds resilience. The more you expose yourself to situations that stretch you, the stronger you become mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You stop being afraid of challenges because you've learned that you can endure them. You realize that every time you survive discomfort, you become a little more confident, a little more capable, a little more unshakable. It's not that life gets easier, it's that you get tougher. You stop seeking an easy path and start embracing the meaningful one. Growth is not about comfort, it's about capacity. The greater your capacity to handle discomfort, the greater your ability to create the life you desire. Discomfort has a strange way of refining your vision. When you're comfortable, your goals are vague and your motivation is weak. But when you're uncomfortable, when you're struggling, failing, and questioning yourself, you start seeing what truly matters. You stop chasing surface-level desires and start pursuing what has real value. Discomfort clarifies purpose. It strips away distractions, forces you to focus, and strengthens your resolve. You learn to find meaning in the pain, and that meaning becomes fuel. Too many people want growth without pressure, transformation without challenge, success without sacrifice. But that's not how the world works. You can't build strength in a place of ease. You can't develop endurance without fatigue. You can't discover courage without fear. Every great accomplishment in history has been forged in the fire of discomfort. The entrepreneur who built a business from nothing, the athlete who trained through exhaustion, the artist who created after countless rejections, they all endured pain that most people would avoid. They understood that discomfort is temporary, but the growth it produces is permanent. Discomfort is also the bridge between intention and achievement. You can plan, visualize, and dream all you want, but until you take uncomfortable action, nothing changes. Action requires courage, and courage only exists in the presence of fear. You can't be brave without discomfort. Every time you face that resistance and move forward anyway, you reprogram your mind to associate discomfort with progress instead of pain. You start craving challenge because you know that's where your next breakthrough lies. The reality is, growth is supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to challenge your beliefs, your habits, your identity. It's supposed to push you to the edge of what you think you can handle. That's how transformation works. It breaks you open before it builds you up. The problem is that most people quit too soon. They interpret discomfort as a sign to stop, when it's actually a sign to keep going. The discomfort you feel when you start something new is proof that you're doing something meaningful. It means you're breaking the cycle, rewriting the story, and creating space for a new version of yourself to emerge. You can't microwave growth. You can't skip the seasons of struggle. You can't stay comfortable and expect to become powerful. The process of growth is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful, but that's what makes it beautiful. The very discomfort you resist contains the wisdom and strength you've been searching for. It's the fire that burns away your limitations and reveals your true potential. Every time you embrace it, you step closer to becoming who you were meant to be. Fear is one of the most misunderstood emotions in human experience. Most people see fear as a signal to stop, a warning that something bad might happen if they proceed. But in truth, fear is not a stop sign, it's a signpost. It points directly to the areas in your life where growth is waiting for you. The things that scare you most are often the things that would change your life the most if you face them. Fear doesn't show up to block your path. It shows up to reveal your next level. It's an indicator that you're standing at the edge of your comfort zone, and beyond that edge lies expansion, potential, and transformation. Yet so many people turn away at that very point, mistaking discomfort for danger, and in doing so, they trade progress for security. When you feel fear, your mind is telling you that you are stepping into unfamiliar territory. It's not saying you're in danger, it's saying you're growing. Growth feels unsafe to the part of your brain that craves familiarity because the brain is wired for survival, not success. It doesn't care about your dreams, your goals, or your potential. It only cares about keeping you alive, even if that means keeping you small. That's why so many people never rise beyond the life they already know. They interpret fear as a reason to retreat instead of a reason to advance. The truth is, fear is not an enemy to conquer, it's a compass to follow. Wherever fear shows up, there's something important waiting on the other side. Every dream you've ever had sits on the far side of fear. The business you want to start, the stage you want to stand on, the person you want to become, all of it requires you to walk through fear. Fear is not there to stop you. It's there to test you. It asks, how much do you really want this? And most people fail that test not because they lack ability, but because they lack courage. They wait for fear to disappear before taking action, but that moment never comes. Fear doesn't go away, you just get stronger than it. The only way to reduce fear is to move through it, not around it. The longer you wait, the louder it grows. But the moment you take that first step, the moment you act despite the shaking hands and racing heart, fear begins to lose its power. Fear is also a mirror. It reflects back your insecurities, your doubts, your self-imposed limitations. It shows you where you've built walls in your own mind. When you're afraid to speak up, it's showing you where you need confidence. When you're afraid to fail, it's showing you where you need faith. When you're afraid to start, it's showing you where you lack belief in your own ability. Fear reveals the exact areas where growth is required. Most people try to avoid this mirror, but avoidance doesn't eliminate fear, it amplifies it. The only way to disarm fear is to face it directly. When you do, you realize that most of what you were afraid of was never real in the first place. It was imagination, amplified by uncertainty. Fear feeds on avoidance. The more you run from it, the stronger it gets. But the moment you confront it, it begins to shrink. It's like standing in a dark room. When you turn on the light, the monsters you thought were there disappear. Fear works the same way. Once you bring awareness and action into the equation, the illusion fades. That's why the people who achieve greatness are not fearless. They simply act in spite of fear. They've learned to use fear as fuel. When they feel it, they know they're on the right track. Fear becomes a signal that something meaningful is ahead. Think about the moments in your life that changed you most. They probably weren't the moments when everything felt comfortable. They were the moments you were scared but moved forward anyway. You made the call. You took the risk. You stepped onto the stage. You spoke your truth. And afterward, you realized the fear was never as powerful as you imagined. The emotion before the action is always more intense than the reality after it. That's because fear thrives in anticipation. Once you take action, the energy shifts. The courage you display in those moments not only weakens fear, but strengthens your self-belief. You start to realize that fear is not there to destroy you, it's there to shape you. Fear also keeps you humble. It reminds you that you're human, that you still have room to grow. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to redefine your relationship with it. Instead of saying, I'm afraid, so I can't, you begin to say, I'm afraid, so I must. You start to see fear as a signal that something valuable is at stake. If it doesn't scare you a little, it's probably not worth doing. Fear and purpose often walk hand in hand. The bigger the dream, the bigger the fear that comes with it. But the presence of fear is not a sign that you're weak, it's proof that you're aiming high. Every breakthrough begins with a moment of fear. The moment you decide to go beyond what's comfortable, you trigger that internal alarm system. But that's also the moment where growth begins. The difference between people who transform their lives and those who stay stuck is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to move in the presence of it. You can let fear paralyze you, or you can let it propel you. It can either be your prison or your compass. When you stop running from fear and start walking with it, you begin to realize it's not an obstacle at all, it's a guide. Fear shows you where your courage needs to grow, where your confidence needs to be built, and where your destiny is calling you forward. Discipline is the invisible bridge between goals and growth. It is the act of doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it. Most people want results without routine, success without sacrifice, transformation without consistency. But growth doesn't work that way. The road to progress is not paved with motivation, it's built with discipline. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going long after the excitement fades. When comfort whispers, rest a little longer, discipline says, get up and move. When the mind tries to bargain for ease, discipline refuses to negotiate. It demands effort, repetition, and responsibility, even when emotions fluctuate. Discipline is the backbone of every success story, the quiet force that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Choosing discipline over ease means deciding that your future is more important than your feelings. Feelings change daily. Some mornings you'll feel powerful. Other days you'll feel drained. If you only act when you feel ready, you'll never move forward. Discipline trains you to rise above emotions and act based on commitment, not convenience. It's easy to start a goal with enthusiasm. It's hard to finish it when the enthusiasm disappears. But discipline doesn't depend on excitement, it depends on decision. It's the repeated act of showing up again and again until progress becomes inevitable. The greatest strength you can develop is the ability to keep your word to yourself, even when no one is watching. That is the essence of discipline. Growth demands structure. Without it, potential is wasted. Discipline gives shape to your energy, direction to your desire, and purpose to your actions. Without discipline, dreams remain ideas, and ideas without execution become regrets. Every great achievement was built on a foundation of consistent effort. The writer who finishes a book, the athlete who wins a championship, the leader who builds an empire, they all share one trait. They do the work, whether they feel like it or not. They've learned to master themselves before mastering their craft. Because discipline is not about control over others, it's about control over self, the ability to lead your own impulses, emotions, and distractions toward a meaningful goal. Discipline doesn't always look glamorous. It's not the highlight moments people celebrate, it's the unseen hours behind them. It's waking up early to practice, staying late to refine, saying no when everyone else says yes. It's uncomfortable, repetitive, and sometimes lonely. But those moments of discipline are where real character is built. Comfort makes you soft, but discipline makes you solid. It molds your will, strengthens your focus, and prepares you to handle more responsibility. Each act of discipline builds trust within yourself. You begin to realize that you are capable of far more than you thought, not because you feel inspired, but because you've learned to take consistent action despite resistance. There's a misconception that discipline is restrictive, that it limits freedom. In truth, discipline is the source of freedom. The person who disciplines their mind is free from distraction. The one who disciplines their finances is free from debt. The one who disciplines their habits is free from regret. Discipline is not a cage, it's a key. It liberates you from the chaos of inconsistency and the weight of unfulfilled potential. Comfort, on the other hand, is the real prison. It lures you into short-term pleasure while locking you into long-term stagnation. Discipline may hurt now, but comfort costs you later. The reason most people avoid discipline is because it demands accountability. It exposes excuses and eliminates shortcuts. Discipline forces you to confront your laziness, your procrastination, and your inconsistencies. It doesn't tolerate mediocrity, it challenges it. That's why many choose ease over excellence. They want success, but they don't want to sacrifice for it. Discipline is the separator. It draws the line between those who talk about change and those who embody it. It's what transforms desire into action and action into results. When you live with discipline, you develop integrity. You stop breaking promises to yourself. You start to trust your own word, and that self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. Discipline also strengthens your ability to handle adversity. Life will test your resolve, distractions will come, temptations will rise, and failures will happen. Without discipline, you'll crumble under pressure. But with it, you endure, you adapt, you learn, you persist. Discipline keeps you grounded when emotions run wild. It gives you control when circumstances seem uncertain. It's the anchor that holds you steady in the storm. Discipline teaches you to move forward even when progress feels invisible, to stay patient while the results are still forming. Every great victory is built on countless disciplined decisions made in moments of doubt. When you commit to discipline, you begin to realize that growth is not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. You stop waiting for motivation to strike and start creating momentum through daily action. Small disciplines done consistently compound into massive transformation. 10 minutes of reading a day turns into a new mindset. One workout at a time reshapes your body and your confidence. 1 hour of focus daily builds a business, a career, or a legacy. Discipline doesn't need to be extreme, it just needs to be consistent. The power lies in repetition, in doing what most people aren't willing to do long enough to see the reward. Discipline is the language of commitment. It's how you communicate to the universe that you are serious about your vision. When you live by discipline, you stop making decisions based on impulse. You begin to live intentionally, guided by purpose rather than pressure. The beauty of discipline is that it eventually becomes a part of who you are. What once felt like effort becomes natural. What once felt difficult becomes routine. The pain of starting fades, replaced by the pride of mastery. That's the paradox of discipline. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and the more freedom it gives you to create, to grow, and to live with direction and power. Awareness is the birthplace of transformation. You cannot change what you cannot see, and most people live their entire lives unaware of the invisible patterns that keep them stuck. They move through life reacting to circumstances rather than creating them, repeating habits that feel familiar but lead nowhere new. Transformation doesn't begin with doing more, it begins with seeing more. The first step toward growth is recognizing the areas of comfort that have quietly become cages. Awareness shines a light on those hidden corners of your life, revealing the behaviors, beliefs, and environments that keep you small. Once you become aware, you can no longer pretend not to know. Awareness demands responsibility. It forces you to confront the truth about where you are and what you've allowed yourself to tolerate. Most people think they're awake, but they're only partially conscious. They go through daily routines on autopilot, same thoughts, same emotions, same choices, same results. They blame luck, circumstances, or other people, never realizing that the real barrier to growth lies within their own awareness. Comfort creates blindness. It numbs your perception and makes you mistake familiarity for fulfillment. You get so used to how things are that you stop questioning whether this is how they should be. Awareness is what breaks that spell. It interrupts the cycle and forces you to look deeper. When you start to observe your thoughts, your habits, your triggers, and your reactions, you begin to see how much of your life is controlled by unconscious programming. And that realization alone is powerful enough to change everything. Transformation begins with self-observation, not self-judgment. Awareness isn't about criticizing yourself, it's about understanding yourself. It's about noticing the choices you make when no one is watching, the excuses you use to stay comfortable, the stories you tell yourself to avoid change. Awareness requires honesty, the kind that strips away all pretense and ego. It means admitting that maybe you've been operating below your potential, that maybe you've accepted comfort because it's easier than growth. This kind of honesty is uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it's transformative. Awareness always brings discomfort first, clarity second, and freedom last. The moment you see where you've been limiting yourself, you gain the power to do something about it. Awareness also exposes your environment. Sometimes it's not just your habits that keep you stagnant, it's the people and spaces you surround yourself with. When you start becoming aware, you notice how certain conversations drain your energy, how certain relationships reinforce your fears, how certain environments keep you small. You start to see that your surroundings shape your state of mind. Comfort thrives in environments where nothing challenges you, where everyone accepts average as normal. Awareness forces you to question that. It makes you realize that growth may require leaving behind familiar places, people, or even identities. You can't heal or grow in the same environment that encourages your stagnation. Awareness shows you what needs to change. Courage helps you change it. Once you develop awareness, you begin to see patterns, not just in your life, but in your thoughts. You start to notice how your inner dialogue determines your external reality. You catch yourself when you think, I can't do this, and begin to question it. You start to see how fear disguises itself as logic, how procrastination hides behind perfectionism, how self-doubt masks itself as humility. Awareness allows you to separate truth from illusion. It's the moment you realize that the limits you've been living with were never real, they were self-imposed. That realization changes everything because awareness expands your perspective. It shows you that life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. Awareness also turns pain into purpose. When you're unaware, pain feels meaningless. You suffer without understanding why. But when you become aware, you start to see the lessons hidden inside discomfort. You recognize that every challenge, every setback, every failure has been trying to teach you something about yourself. Instead of running from pain, you begin to study it. You ask, what is this trying to show me? That question transforms suffering into growth. Awareness shifts your focus from blaming to learning, from avoiding to understanding. It allows you to use every experience, even the painful ones, as fuel for transformation. One of the greatest gifts of awareness is that it gives you choice. Before awareness, you react. After awareness, you respond. Before awareness, you repeat old cycles. After awareness, you create new ones. Most people think they're choosing their lives, but they're only choosing based on their conditioning. Awareness breaks that conditioning. It gives you the power to pause before acting, to question your assumptions, to make decisions consciously instead of automatically. That's the moment you reclaim your power, because the ability to choose differently is the foundation of change. Awareness also deepens your relationship with time. You begin to realize how much of your life has been spent waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right feeling. You see how comfort tricks you into postponing your growth, convincing you that later is safer. But awareness makes you see that later never comes. It only disguises itself as tomorrow. Growth starts the moment you wake up to the fact that no one is coming to push you forward. You have to do it yourself. Awareness turns every second into a decision point. Stay asleep in comfort or awaken to your potential. As your awareness expands, your perception of reality changes. You stop seeing challenges as problems and start seeing them as invitations. You stop blaming life for being unfair and start recognizing how your own thoughts shape your experience. You become a participant in your evolution instead of a spectator of your circumstances. Awareness is the root of all personal power. Once your eyes are open, they cannot unsee. Once your mind is awake, it cannot go back to sleep. And once you realize how much of your life has been guided by unconscious comfort, you begin to consciously choose growth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, even when it demands everything from you. Legacy is not built in comfort. It is forged in the fire of growth, in the moments when you push yourself beyond what feels safe, easy, or certain. The truth is, no one remembers the person who played it safe. History doesn't celebrate the ones who stayed quiet, avoided risk, or refused to stretch. Legacy belongs to those who dared to grow when it would have been easier to settle. The people who made a difference in this world were not the ones who sought comfort, they were the ones who sacrificed it. They understood that a comfortable life might make you feel secure, but it will never make you significant. Growth, on the other hand, is uncomfortable, unpredictable, and often lonely, but it is the path to impact, the road to fulfillment, and the birthplace of legacy. Comfort keeps you in maintenance mode. You survive, but you don't contribute. You maintain what you have instead of multiplying it. Growth, however, turns existence into purpose. It transforms your life from something you live for yourself into something that leaves a mark on others. Legacy begins when you realize that your life is not just about you, it's about the value you create, the example you set, the difference you make in the lives around you. But you can't inspire anyone by staying the same. You can't teach courage, from a place of fear or preach growth from a place of comfort. The only way to influence others is to embody what you want to see in them, and that requires constant evolution. Legacy is built in the moments when you choose discipline over distraction, perseverance over pleasure, purpose over comfort. Every decision you make, every challenge you face, every obstacle you overcome adds a brick to the foundation of your legacy. People often think legacy is about what you leave behind when you die, but it's not. Legacy is what you leave behind every day in the hearts and minds of those you touch. It's in the example you set for your children, your friends, your community. It's in the energy you bring to every room, the standard you live by, and the courage you display when life tests you. Comfort has no part in that equation, because comfort produces nothing worth remembering. Growth, on the other hand, produces stories that inspire generations. The difference between comfort and legacy is that comfort serves you, while legacy serves others. Comfort focuses on how you feel right now. Legacy focuses on how you'll be remembered later. Comfort seeks to protect the present. Legacy invests in the future. You can't build a legacy if you're constantly protecting yourself from pain, rejection, or struggle. The process of growth demands that you risk failure, that you expose yourself to discomfort, that you step into uncertainty with faith. Every meaningful contribution to humanity was born through discomfort. Art, invention, innovation, leadership, wisdom, all of it came from individuals who were willing to outgrow the limits of comfort. Legacy is not measured in possessions or titles. It's measured in transformation, how much you've grown and how many people you've helped grow along the way. When you choose growth, you give others permission to do the same. You become a living example of what's possible. People don't follow comfort, they follow courage. They are drawn to those who dare to stretch, to evolve, to believe in something greater than themselves. That's how legacies are created, not by perfection, but by persistence. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to have the will to keep growing, to keep moving forward, when most would give up. The danger of comfort is that it makes you forget your potential. It convinces you that what you have is enough when you know deep down that you were meant for more. Legacy begins when you stop accepting comfort as your ceiling and start seeing it as your enemy. Because comfort will always tempt you to quit early, to lower your standards, to settle for good instead of reaching for great. But the moment you resist that temptation, the moment you decide to keep pushing even when it's hard, you're building something that will outlast you. Growth creates momentum, and momentum creates impact. That impact ripples beyond your lifetime, touching people you may never even meet. Legacy requires courage because it's built on decisions that others won't understand. While others are chasing convenience, you'll be chasing character. While they're avoiding failure, you'll be learning from it. While they're protecting comfort, you'll be pursuing purpose. That's the difference between a life that fades and a life that echoes. The world remembers those who were willing to grow despite the discomfort, to rise after falling, to continue when others stopped. Comfort dies with you, but growth lives beyond you. The lessons you learn, the lives you touch, the example you leave behind, that's the real inheritance. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you expand not only your life, but the lives of those around you. You become a beacon of what's possible. Your struggle becomes someone else's inspiration. Your discipline becomes someone else's motivation. Your transformation becomes someone else's permission to rise. That's the beauty of legacy. It multiplies through others. You may never know how far your influence reaches, but it begins with one choice, the decision to keep growing when comfort calls your name. Legacy is not about having more. It's about becoming more. It's about turning your life into a message that speaks long after you're gone. A message that says, I refuse to settle. I chose to grow. And that choice, repeated day after day, is what turns an ordinary existence into an extraordinary impact.